Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, so if you are watching this video for the first time, my name is Learning Stat, and I am a graduate of the Department of Statistics, and I'm also the CEO of Learning Stat Tutorial. So I'll be doing a quick run through on Stat 111, which is also called Stat 114, and I'll be just like I said, a quick run through on basically the lecture one. Okay, so your start 111 and your start 111, your start 114 is what you call your general statistics. Okay, you call it general or descriptive statistics. Now, most people feel that start 111 is quite easy, and when people hear statistics for the first time, what comes to their mind is mean, media, mode. Actually, don't worry. When you get to lecture 4, you see that it is far more than that. Okay, so just do a quick run through to your lecture one. So first thing I'll be talking about is definition of statistics. Okay, and mind you, don't mind my handwriting. Definition of statistics. Okay, statistics. Now, if I am to define statistics, now if you run through your slide, you see different definition of statistics by different statistician. I don't want to mention names. You see different definitions. Okay, now but statistics has one just one definition, and your statistics exam is not like economics where they will ask you, okay, define economics by Professor Lionel Robinson, define economics by Adam Smith, by nobody's going to ask you define economics by so person. Sorry, define statistics by so person. Okay, so I'll just give you one definition that rules all definition. Okay, and what's that definition? Now, if you ask me to define statistics, like I said, I'll give you just one definition. And what's that definition? Statistics can be defined as a branch of science. Okay, it is a branch of science where we collect, we organize, we analyze, we summarize, we present, and we interpret data. This is the definition that, let's call it the general definition of statistics. It is a branch of science or it is a branch of mathematics where we collect, organize, analyze, summarize, present, and interpret data. Okay. Now, there is one question that you might likely see in your exam. Let me tell you. Now, there's something they do ask. Statistics is dash. Like you see something like universal, domain neutral, this, that, and other options like that. Now, one thing you have to know is that statistics is domain neutral. Now, when I say statistics is domain neutral, what do I mean by statistics is domain neutral? It means that statistics is not a science subject. Should I say subject? It is not a science subject, and it is not a social science subject. So we say that statistics is what? Domain neutral, meaning that it is not science, it is not social science. It is not science in the sense that all other science subjects like the likes of physics, chemistry, it involves you carrying out practicals in the lab. But in statistics, we don't do that. We don't have anything like, we carry out tests in statistics, but we don't carry them out in the lab. Okay, that is why it is not a science subject. And the reason why it is not a social science subject is that statistics does not study human behavior in relation to the environment or in relation to other how they relate with other people. Okay, so statistics is domain neutral. It is not science, it is not social science, it is just a branch, like something on its own. But mind you, some people, if they still want to define statistics, they will say statistics is a branch of mathematics, though it is what? It is domain neutral. Okay, so I've given you the definition of statistics. Now, statistics is the branch of science where we collect, we organize, we analyze, we summarize, we present, and we interpret data. Now, let's talk about the branches of statistics. Branches of statistics. Now, there are two main branches of statistics, and they sometimes ask in the exam. There are two main branches of statistics, and they sometimes ask in the exam. So, the first branch of statistics that we have is what we call the descriptive statistics. The descriptive statistics. That is the first branch of statistics. And the next one is the inferential statistics. inferential statistics. Inferential stats. Okay. Now, descriptive statistics. Let's talk about this guy. Descriptive statistics. Now, descriptive statistics. That word descriptive is from the word describing. Is from the word describing. Okay, the word descriptive is from the word describing. So descriptive statistics is basically a branch of statistics where you use things like pictures to pass messages. For example, now when I talk about, I know most of you are familiar with your pie chart, your histogram, your bar chart, where you have the multiple bar chart, segmented bar chart, component bar chart. So you have the pie chart, histogram, bar chart, and bar chart. You have the ogive, which is your cumulative frequency curve, and many more. Okay, and many more. So all these guys are descriptive statistics. Why? Because they pass information about a data through what? Through images. For example, now if I draw something like this, for those of you that are doing probability one, you see more of things like this. Now if I draw something like this, now I can look at this thing and say that, okay, the data is normally distributed. Okay, that is just what? A descriptive statistics. So a descriptive statistics, or sorry, descriptive statistics is just a branch of statistics where we what? We describe through images. For example, your pie chart, your histogram, your bar chart, your UGIV, and many more. Okay, and many more. Now let's move to the second one, inferential statistics. Okay, now this inferential statistics, this word inferential, is from the word inference. Okay? The word inferential is from the word inference. And the word inference means what? It means conclusion. Conclusion. Okay? The word inferential is from the word what? Inference. And the word inference means what? Conclusion. So what then is inferential statistics? What then is inferential statistics? So inferential statistics, let me rub this off. Inferential statistics is just a branch of statistics where information that we get from the sample, we generalize it on the population. Okay, so for those of you that are in physics, math edu, and statistics, you are going to be doing this as a course in your second semester. So we call it Stat 121. That's inferential statistics 1. Okay, so and you see this in your 200 level as well. That's inferential statistics 2. So this is a course on its own. So inferential statistics is a branch of statistics where information that we get from the sample is generalized on the population. Now, let me give you an instance. I usually give this instance of somebody cooking rice. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, I have a pot. Let's say this is my pot, and I am cooking rice. Okay. I have rice filled up inside this pot, and I'm boiling the rice. Now, if I add salt into this rice, let's say I add salt into this rice. If I add salt into this pot of rice that I'm cooking, now, if I taste a little portion of the rice, mind you, this whole rice inside the pot is what we call the population. This is not inferential statistics, so I will not take you deep. This is the population. Now, if I want to test for adequacy of salt, if I draw a small portion out of this pot of rice, that small portion is what we call a sample. Now, if I draw that small portion called a sample and I test that sample, that small portion of rice, now whatever that small portion tells me is what I will generalize on this remaining pot of rice. For example, if I take a small part of this rice and I taste it and I discover that, oh, that rice that I tasted is salty, then I can conclude that the whole rice is what? Salty. So that is inferential statistics. Inferential statistics is we take a small part from a population, we carry out experiment on that small part. Whatever result it gives us, we generalize it on what? On the population. So that is what? Inferential statistics. So next thing, I'll be talking about data. Okay, that's the third thing. I'll be talking about data. Now, when we talk about data in statistics, what exactly are we talking about? When we mention data, what exactly are we talking about? Now, data are basically observations. Your observations They are, yes, we can just call them in general. It is called observation. One thing is data. Is okay, like I said, data is called observations. Observations. Now, one thing about me is statistics is complicated already. So it is not meaningful if I make it more complicated. So there is no need for you to cram. Okay, just know that data are what? They are observations. Okay, for example, now if you look at, let's say, the age of pepper sellers in a market, now that observation that you are getting is what? Is a data. If I look at the complexion of several people in a department, now that data that I collected is what? That observation that I'm collecting is what? Is data. So data are basically observations. You can also call them fact. Yes, you can call them fact. You can call them fact. Data are facts. Data are observations. Okay. So now, the next thing is your sources of data. I've defined that. I've already said that data are what? Observations. I've already told you that data are facts. Okay. Now, let's talk about sources of data. All this data, how do we get data? Okay. How do we get data? How do we get data? Okay. How do we get data? So, one way we get data is, now I'm talking about sources of data. Sources of data. One way we get data. One way we get data is unpublished source. Unpublished source. Unpublished source. So now, unpublished sources of data, what are they? Now, unpublished sources of data are data that these guys, this kind of data are not readily available to random people. For example, now, let's say, what kind of instance can I give? Data that are not readily available to people. There are some data that are with the president of Nigeria that cannot be disclosed to an average Nigerian. So that kind of data is what? An unpublished source. The second one we have is what? Published source. Published source are data that are readily available to even a layman. For example, if you talk about newspaper, newspaper is also a source of data. Hope you know. Newspaper is a source of data. But newspaper is a published source because a common man can just walk into a street and buy a newspaper for any token. It is readily available. But unpublished sources of data they are not readily available to random people. There are some kind of information that with the president of Nigeria that he cannot just give out like that. Okay, so that is unpublished source. But published source are readily available to, in fact, anytime, any day, anywhere, you can always see them. For example, magazine. Magazine is a type of published source. Magazine, your magazine. Like I said also, your newspaper. Your newspaper is also a published source of data, and many more. The third one we have is we have electronic source. Yes, electronic source. Electronic. Now, when I mention electronic source of data, I know that everybody is intelligent enough to know that electronic source of data are data that you get virtually, like online. Data that you get online, they are electronic sources of data. They don't need to cram. Okay. Number 4, we have statistical survey. Statistical survey. Statistical survey. For example, now, when I say statistical survey, what do I mean? For example, your census. Your census is an example of statistical survey. Is an example of statistical survey. Then we also have experiment. Okay, experiments also are sources of data. Okay, so these are, I think in your material you have about 6 of them. But there's no need cramming all these things. So unpublished source, published source, electronic source, statistical survey, and what? An experiment. So those are the sources of data that we have. So the next thing is, we've talked about definition of statistics, we've talked about branches, we've talked about data, we've talked about sources of data. Okay, now let's now talk about a variable. Let's talk about a variable. Now, remember I talked about data before, and I said that data are basically what? Observations or fact. Now, your variable are also data. Okay, Variables are characteristics that are measured. They are also data, okay? They are also data. But variables are characteristics. In fact, they are observations as well. Your variable are observations. Your variable, you can also refer to them as what? As data. Therefore, they are what? They are observations. They are observations. They are characteristics. They are characteristics. They are facts. They are facts. Facts that are measured, that are observed, observations, characteristics. They are all what? They are all what? They are all variable or data. Now, we have two types of variable. We have two types of variable. We have we have we have the qualitative, we have the qualitative and we have the quantitative. Now, qualitative variable are also known as categorical variable. Please take note of this second name, categorical. Okay? Qualitative variable are also called what? Categorical. Then your quantitative variable are also called metric variable. Metric. They are metric. They are metric variable. Now, let me explain something that is very, very vital. That is very, very vital. Okay? Now, when I said variables can be divided into two. We have the qualitative or categorical. Then we have the quantitative or what? Or metric. Now, what are qualitative variables? Let me talk about this guy first. Qualitative. Qualitative. Qualitative or categorical. Qualitative or categorical. Okay? Now, the word qualitative, I want to talk about qualitative variables. So the word qualitative is from the word quality. The word qualitative is from the word quality. Now, when I say qualitative variables are variables that are gotten by observations. Remember that I said that what? Variables are what? Observations. So, qualitative variables, they are gotten by observations. Variables that are gotten by observations are what? Are qualitative. Now, for example, if I talk about completion of UI students, hope you know that it is what? Qualitative. Do you know why? Because I can observe I can observe the completion of a UI student. Okay, I can observe the completion of a UI student. I cannot measure the completion of a UI student. I can only observe. So variables that are gotten by observations are what we call what? Qualitative variable. Then the second one is categorical variable. Quantitative. Quantitative or metric. Now, this quantitative variable, the word quantitative is from the word quantity. You can see that all these things do not require cramming. It does not require cramming. Qualitative is from the word what? Quality. They are gotten by what? Observations. Quantitative variable is from the word what? Quantity. So, quantitative variable, they are gotten by count or by measurement. Okay? Look at it. Qualitative is from the word quality. They are gotten by what? Observation. Quantitative is from the word quantity. They are gotten by what? Count. That is, you can either count them or you can what? Measure them. For example, if I talk about the height of students in faculty of science. Now, this kind of variable is what? It is quantitative because I can measure the height of a student and I can say that student is 14 feet tall. For example, 14 feet and 7 inches tall. Okay, that is a number. So that's why we call it what? Metric. That's why it's called what? Metric. Because what? They are always in figure form. They are always numeric. Okay, so they are gotten by count. You can count them and you can what? You can measure them. So those are the two kinds of variable we have. We have the qualitative variable or categorical. Then we have what? The quantitative variable or what? Metric.